Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another another Free for All Tuesday. What's going on, everybody? How we doing out there? Happy Tuesday. I hope everybody is having a lovely, fantastic day out there today. Let's see who we've got hanging out in the chat. And I am going to try to make these a much more common thing. Update on the painting thing. I got the webcam. I hooked up the webcam. I did all the stuff. The webcam looks like fucking dog shit. I got like a $40 or $50 1080p webcam. It looks like fucking ass. It's got a horrible field of view. Here, you can take a look. Looks like fucking shit. It looks like a fucking 720, not even 720, it's like 630p webcam. It looks like dog shit. Oh, and by the way, that thing, this thing that's right in the front here, look at the color on it. This thing right in the front here is like 7 inches away from the webcam, and it doesn't even fit in frame. So gonna have to find something else to work with here because I just cannot get the field of view right. I don't know if it's OBS, my computer, or the webcam, so gonna keep trying because the webcam is, yeah, that thing's a good 6 or 7 inches away from the webcam, and it doesn't even fit in frame. So I don't know. We're just gonna have to keep trying. I love the work you're doing. It's coming along. Definitely coming along. I'm almost done with all the first coat. Then I'm gonna have to just do a little touch up and all that stuff. But yeah, I don't know. Whatever that is just ain't working. That webcam fucking blows. So that one's gonna have to get returned, and we're gonna have to try a different one.
We're looking at sea otters. 6 of them here.
That's fucking Obi-Wan Kenobi.
We're looking at...
Sorry about missing the show. My illness was that bad. Oh, shit, what was wrong, dude? But hey, scintillating Tuesday. Nice. Scintillating Tuesday. I like that. But the fucking ratio is in chat. Hit the like button. Thank you, Steve Dave, and that is correct. I mentioned minis in one Discord, and someone spawned out of nowhere like, minis? That's how it is. I went to a store the other day, and I'm like, hey, man, I need sticky tack. I need sticky tack. And it's stuff that won't leave residue. And he goes, oh, you painting minis? And I was like, fuck, dude, how do you know? How the fuck did you know? And he goes, because that's what I use. I use sticky tack to stick it to the table, and so it doesn't oh, that's a little tight on the turn. And I use sticky tack and I stick it to the table, and it doesn't leave residue on anything. I was like, no shit, I am missing out on some stuff apparently. But thank you, Steve Dave, I appreciate that. Nice, sweet.
My name is Brian Tyler Cohen.
Nah, shut up, you. Let us take a look at the like ratio. And yeah, again, guys, I'm sorry about the show yesterday. Just, I was unprepared. It was an off day. None of my co-hosts showed up. I had no word on anything. So sorry, it was not a fantastic fun show. I apologize, but we are here today, and we are going to have an enjoyable show this evening. So I will ask everybody to please hit the like, everyone who is here. Share it out on your social media, put it in Discord, all that stuff. That is greatly, greatly appreciated. And let's see what this is about. I have no idea. Never watched this. No clue what it is. No clue what it's about. But I have been enjoying... Oh! Meow, Mama Yikes put this toward the webcam. You like, thank you, Mama Yikes. I appreciate that. And I most certainly will. Thank you very much. You could not have. Did you math that out? That you would get the 310,000 Stream Boss HP? Did you math that? Because it looked like you mathed that. Homer Simpson walks into the nearest bush. Nice. Did your uncle ever get back to you? Yeah, later he did, yeah. That's fucking ponderous, Mama X. But thank you very much for the 110. That is very, very appreciated. Can we get a big thank you to Mama Yikes out there in the chat? Thank you. And yeah, I have one on Amazon right now that I'm taking a look at. It's you can't tell. Like, you look up 1080p webcam and literally the first thing is $18, and you know that's not gonna be 1080p. So you got to scroll through a little bit. One I'm looking at, there's one that's like $80 or what's that? $70. One that's like $200. So I'm gonna do some research, compare, take a look, see what the what is. But thank you. Do love a good 31 frames though. Who doesn't? 31 frames is the bee's knees, as it were. We got the backing music going. Good. Is he at least all right? Yeah, he's fine. He texted me later, said that he got, he was a little too drunk, and I never heard from Polly till he showed up in the middle of the show after I'd already closed Discord, and I'm not relaunching all that for 15 minutes. Here for GLEEP. Oh yeah, I forgot to put it in the description. Shit, GLEEP is in the dono pile. Let me add that. I'll just title it right now, because fuck it. 5.51 GLEEP. Yeah, GLEEP is done, uploaded, and ready to rock. Delete that real quick. Okay, boom, save. Cool, done. All right, let's take a look at this.
We are so far past the point of using security and information breach as a justification to delete these apps.
TikTok would have absolutely been banned. TikTok would have 100% have been banned if it were up to the Biden administration. And I don't believe for a second it had anything to do with privacy. I don't think it had anything to do with protecting data. And you're going to have a hard time knocking me off this hill. I think it would have been banned solely due to the fact that it was not the American government didn't have a say in what was on the platform.
It's never going to get banned.
I 100% agree with that, actually.
But the argument...
Period.
I disagree.
I'm going to grab a drink of water real quick. I'll be right back.
Don't stop celebrating.
What?
I disagree.
What? Hi guys, I'm Naima, and I'm a leftist.
My name is Adam, and I'm a liberal.
My name is Noelle, and I'm a conservative.
I'm Aldo, and I'm MAGA.
Welcome to episode 2 of the Roundtable discussion. Are you guys excited?
Yeah, let's do it.
Autism destroys families. More importantly, it destroys our greatest resource, which are our children. These are kids who, many of them were fully functional and regressed because of some environmental exposure into autism when they're 2 years old. And these are kids who will never play baseball. They'll never write a poem. They'll never go out on a date. Many of them will never use a toilet unassisted. And we have to recognize we are doing this to our children.
Is he confusing autism with cerebral palsy? Why can't autistic children play baseball?
Is autism preventable? 3, 2, 1.
There's absolutely zero research substantiating the idea that autism is caused by any sort of vaccine or any sort of environmental factor. All research, in fact, points to the idea that we've gotten better at detecting autism over the past 100 years. So you guys know, like, the correlation causation fallacy, right? A lot of people look at these charts and think that because autism is increased, it's directly due to medicine, when in fact...
Okay, I'm sorry. I gotta pull that back a second. I'm so sorry. I gotta hear what's going on.
I'm MAGA.
Welcome to episode 2 of the Roundtable discussion. Are you guys excited?
Yeah, let's do it.
Autism destroys families. More importantly, it destroys our greatest resource, which are our children.
Autism does what? Okay. By and large, RFK has some pretty solid takes for the most part, but autism destroying families and children is not a reality.
Our kids who, many of them were fully functional and regressed because of some environmental exposure into autism when they're 2 years old. And these are kids who will never play baseball. They'll never write a poem. They'll never go out on it.
I'm sorry, no. Autism does not mean a child will never live a normal life. And I am, you guys know, both of my children are autistic. They have ASD. This is a big miss.
Many of them will never use a toilet unassisted. And we have to recognize we are...
Where the fuck did he get that from?
...are doing this to our children.
Is he confusing autism with cerebral palsy? Why can't autistic children play baseball?
Is autism preventable? 3, 2, 1.
Okay, and I will step in right here again. I do not believe that we know enough about it to say if it is genetic or environmental. That might be a little bit of a spicy take, but I don't think that we know enough about it because the rates of it have been increased exponentially. There are some things to suggest that there is evidence that it could be environmental, but I don't think we know nearly enough.
There's absolutely zero research substantiating the idea that autism is caused by any sort of vaccine or any sort of environmental factor. All research, in fact, points to the idea that we've gotten better at detecting autism over the past 100 years. So you guys know, like, the correlation causation fallacy, right? A lot of people look at these charts and think that because autism is increased, it's directly due to medicine, when in fact, because of medicine, we've gotten better at detecting these things, and that's why we see higher numbers.
Yeah, I'm not even like 100%, sure that autism, is caused by, vaccines or something like that. But I think the idea that environmental factors can't have a significant impact on the development of a child after birth.
He's talking about extreme autism, nonverbal, possibly violent, repetitive self-harm. Those things definitely destroy families. The behavior, not the what? The behavior, not the behavior, comma, not the autistic person. Well, he's the one sitting in front of Congress. He should be orating a little bit better.
Is questionable at best. I mean, we know that there are significant and important milestones in the development of children, and that many factors, I think including environmental, can have an impact on that. I mean, do you think that environmental factors can have an impact on the development of a child in any regard?
Oh, absolutely, of course, but that's a way different question than can environmental factors directly lead to a child having autism.
And I'm genuinely asking because I've never even engaged with this debate. I found it silly, but I don't know. Is autism genetic? Because I'm not that fancy with the medical words, but if autism is not environmental, that would mean it has to be genetic, correct?
And apparently not being able to pay taxes or use a toilet. We can first of all just agree that what RFK Jr. said there was not really accurate regarding autistic people.
I think it was accurate. When I grew up, my parents used to tell me that if somebody says something about you and it doesn't apply, then you have nothing to worry about.
But that's stupid, and your parents are stupid. If somebody says something about you and it doesn't apply, you have nothing to worry about. Why? Why would you not correct blatant incorrect things if somebody is talking? Like if I was just in a bar or something and someone's like, yeah, man, autistic people, all of them, they can't speak. I'm like, no, why do you think that? Why would you think that they just can't speak? Like, this is a dumb statement. If somebody says something correct and it's not about you, don't say anything. Why? We would never learn anything. Why would you say that? It is mostly presumed to be genetic related in most cases. Oh, interesting.
And when I
It's genetic. Have you ever seen the Kardashians? Nice. Hey, Scribe.
hear that, I think to disregard that is an insult to the families that do have children with severe autism. I have people with autism in my family, and RFK was not talking about my family members. My family members are people that can pay taxes, do have a job, can live.
Okay, so then it would have been corrected to say severe autistic people. In cases of extreme autism, they cannot do this, that, and the third. Like what?
Live a successful and leading life. And I didn't find it insulting because he wasn't talking about those people. He's talking about people with autism that it takes the entire family to take care of them. There are people out there with autism that it's so severe that they can't live a successful and a productive life. And so I think to completely disregard that and to say, well, not all autistic kids are like that, and all autistic kids are the same, everybody's the same, I think it's insulting.
That's what he's saying.
I do think, I mean...
That is literally what he's saying. A lot of people, especially older, think only bad cases exist. Dumb. Dumb. Oh, Scribe's in both chats. What up, man?
We, I think, can all agree that autism is a spectrum. I mean, medically, it's pretty much an agreement that autism is a spectrum, and it ranges in terms of high functioning to lower functioning kiddos, right?
For sure.
The issue is that RFK is not acknowledging that spectrum. He's saying that all kids with autism, he doesn't acknowledge that spectrum. He just defines autism as children who can't play baseball or use the bathroom.
Where did he say that?
I disagree.
Just now.
Yeah, so he was making...
saying with this, again, I took it as he's talking about the people that do have those problems.
But he didn't say lower functioning autistic children.
He was making a
just
broad
said
generalization.
autistic children. So in the same way that you're saying it doesn't apply to your high functioning family members, that's my issue with his statement, is that he doesn't delineate between higher functioning and lower functioning autistic people, and he doesn't acknowledge that it is a spectrum. And that
I have a little bit of a hot take here. I think maybe he just doesn't care to do it.
there are thousands of autistic people who will be able to pay taxes, who will be able to have jobs. I've had teachers who have Asperger's and who are on the spectrum, you know?
Yeah. Would you agree that there are families out there that do have family members with severe autism and it isn't a good situation?
Yes, there are people that exist with severe autism.
You know, I'm actually generally pro-vaccine, you know, especially for things like the measles. Mm-hmm. The problem that I see is that the vaccine...
When was... Of course it was made about vaccines, but why? Who said vaccines? I think they were talking about autism. Or was it implied that it was vaccines? I thought we were over the fakery that RFK was anti-vax. I thought that was kind of done.
The vaccine schedule has gotten so out of control, and it seems like they keep adding more and more, and nobody's actually asking if it's making American public health any better.
Well, our health secretary...
I think a lot of people are asking.
Our health secretary is asking that straight up. So
the measles is actually a great example. You know, quick question for you guys. Can you get a single antigen measles vaccine in America?
I don't think so.
No.
No, the answer is no. And why is that? You can only get it in the form of MMR, MMRV, which is measles, mumps, rubella, and viscerella, I think it's called. And so the question is, if the outbreak is bad of measles or these other diseases, why do we not have access to single antigen vaccines? Why do they only come in...
Do you know why it's so bad? And people blame like, oh, COVID vax, blah, blah, blah. Mennonites, Amish people, they don't get the vaccine. You can go look. All the outbreaks were in... We're in Mennonite-esque groups, or whatever they're called. Dutch, East Irish, whatever. Those.
Multi-vaccine doses. And I think we can look to recent events to find some of those answers. With COVID, for example, this is a virus that had a very low mortality rate. The people that died, 95% of them had pre-existing conditions.
Yes, okay. COVID doesn't... This dude's a fucking idiot. COVID does not equal... MMR. What is he? No, COVID and rubella are not the same thing. COVID was it was a disease that killed old and fat people. Old people got it, they died. Fat people got it, they died. Mumps affects, isn't it like specifically children? I know they ain't the same. So this dude's retarded.
And yet the medical community said that everybody needs to get vaccinated, get all of these boosters, and the end result was that the people that otherwise would have died without the vaccine, at least most of them, a majority, would have died anyway and died. The people that were healthy didn't get affected. The people that didn't have these pre-existing conditions were fine. And the pharmaceutical companies made out with billions of dollars. And so...
Okay, you are correct about this, but can we please stop pretending that vaccines cause autism? It's stupid.
I think in light of these things, we should actually question, are these vaccines helping us, or are they benefiting the select few that are trying to sell us a cure in a bottle? I think today we've been so inculcated by the medical community that anytime we see a problem or a
He thought he did a good word there.
symptom, we want to slap a Band-Aid on that. And these pharmaceutical companies know that, and I think they're exploiting.
Don't do that.
I'll grab
And
that
so
in a second.
I am actually pro-vaccine, but I do think that it's gotten out of hand, and I think in light of recent events, it's reasonable to ask ourselves, is this benefiting American public health, or is it benefiting people that are trying to sell us a quick fix in a syringe?
Can I ask a question for you?
Yeah.
Do you know what the treatment is for measles?
For measles?
Yeah.
What is it? No, I don't know.
There is currently no treatment
Right.
for measles that is approved by the FDA. So part of it, going back to what you said about COVID, is not just for those who are immunosuppressant and need help. It's about increasing our herd immunity. So
I totally agree. I agree. And I think that we should have access to single antigen vaccines.
and then what I will say is when you talk about, this being exploitative in terms of the medical community.
Sin with the straw man. Explain. What did I straw man that upset you so much? Can you tell me what I got wrong there? Was it saying that it's the Mennonites that are doing it, that COVID was not nearly as bad as we pretended it was? That tell me where the straw man was, please.
One thing that you're not factoring in is that if people do not have a herd immunity and that more people are getting measles, mumps, rubella, COVID, then that's more money that can be taken from Americans.
Okay, please stop lumping them all in together like they are the same thing. Measles and mumps are not the same thing as COVID, which is not the same thing as rubella. That's stop being silly, please.
In order to treat these illnesses instead of preventing it before people get them.
But I think even in your question, it kind of goes back to the point of, we
read the last chat. He's talking about antigens. Okay, so what did I say that was a straw man? We're talking about vaccines. Antigens are just... Now, my vaccine knowledge may be waning, but is antigens not just the antibodies that are in the vaccine that get your body used to it?
See these outbreaks as the worst thing in the world. Outbreaks have always existed, and the reality is the best vaccine and the most efficacious vaccine has always been a healthy diet, a healthy lifestyle, and good exercise.
I think over a million people dying.
Wait, so I can
500 to 1,000 kids die of RSV and measles every single year, even vaccinated. And the problem that we see today, just like in COVID, is the media spins this and they turn the camera to people that do have these pre-existing conditions and that do die, and they say,
yeah, if somebody is 600, 500, 400 pounds and they get COVID, they are much more likely to die than if I got COVID. It just is what it is. I have ADHD, which is a form of autism. I tend to hyper-focus on a subject and pour every ounce of energy into something. I also get easily distracted. So for me, having a routine is paramount in my life, and I'm strict about having to adhere to it. So can you take a shit, Kiro Soldier, by yourself, or do you need somebody to watch you? Appreciate the $2, buddy.
That this is emblematic of the entire country.
But if we know that there are people,
you need to get a vaccine. See,
but if we know that there are people with pre-existing conditions,
that's why you need to get.
But if we know that there are people,
I don't agree with that.
If we know that there are people who have pre-existing conditions, and we can all increase our herd immunity by each getting the vaccine, so that people who have pre-existing.
Okay, speaking strictly on COVID, I am not willing to risk my heart health because somebody doesn't want to lose weight. That's fine. As somebody who has to clean up after patients with those diseases, I can't confirm, not the same. Mumps, measles, and rubella have the same vaccine, but are different for sure.
Conditions are not more exposed to the virus. Why not do that? I mean, it's a shot.
Again, I'm for that. And what I'm saying is I think the pro-vaccine side is losing a lot of credibility and a lot of support from people like me when we say, hey, is adding all of these vaccines to the schedule, has it made our herd immunity any better?
Yes.
Have the outbreak
absolutely
gone down?
Wait, compared to when? What year do we want to compare it to? Because you said that somebody with a healthy diet can oftentimes go without a vaccine. Is that the information?
No, I never said that. I said the most efficacious vaccine.
So it's more effective than a vaccine if you just have a healthy diet.
I think on the macro, yes. I think on the macro, if everybody in this country did those things, we would be a healthier country than if everybody stayed this.
Okay, yes, that is objectively true. If everybody had a healthy diet and took care of their body, we would be a healthier country. But that has nothing to do with vaccines. What?
Same, and everybody got vaccinated.
But why not do
100%.
both? Why can't you have a healthy diet and get vaccinated and increase our herd immunity?
We can, but I have a problem with people pushing more vaccines than are necessary.
But a measles vaccine is necessary.
Okay, then why can't we get a single antigen measles vaccine?
I'm sure that there's a reasonable explanation for that. But the thing is...
Well, hon, I want you to answer that. Why do you guys think that we should?
I really don't know why the
why
measles
not?
and 2 vaccines. I'm sure that there is a scientific... Okay, wait, what's your degree in? Do you have a degree?
I do.
And what?
It's not relevant.
Okay, so none of us have a relevant degree in medicine right now. So why are we questioning the experts and the insane amount of studies? I mean, we can go back to 1850 when Hawaii lost 1/3 of their population to measles. You don't think they were healthy enough to outrun the measles there? You don't think their diet was good enough? You're sitting here saying that you can outrun any of these...
I never said that.
You're sitting here saying that the vaccine...
Yeah, okay. I think this dude's getting a little confused. I think this guy's getting a little confused. Okay, so strictly speaking, COVID, living a healthy lifestyle, was a useful, it was useful against COVID. If you were healthy, if you weren't overweight, all that stuff, by and large, you were fine with COVID. I'm pretty sure measles and mumps and all that stuff can take out a healthy person just as equally. So, should America be healthier? Yes. I don't know why this kid won't just concede the point that, yes, America could be healthier, but MMR vaccines are a good thing. I feel like this conversation is going on too long.
Vaccine is oftentimes less effective than just having a healthy diet. History disagrees with you. All of the thousands of studies and the millions of people who have died throughout history completely disagree with you. Right now, we live in probably the most scientifically advanced time ever, right? And because of that, we have all kind of gone into this contract where we all agree that if we can get vaccinated, not everyone has to get vaccinated, then we can protect the most vulnerable of our population, have a more productive and healthy society across the globe. So I don't know, your argument is either that we go back to the 1850s or we go back to the standards of like countries that don't even have vaccines right now.
I think autism, you know, there's nothing wrong with doing more research and figuring out if there's ways that we can reduce it. I definitely didn't pick red because I don't think that RFK should still investigate. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But I do also agree with you guys in terms of the generalizations. I have a lot of people in my family who have autism from several different, varying degrees. Some are super severe, some are not that severe. I don't think he meant to be offensive or like super harmful, but I think that when you have a level of that big of a platform and that many people listening to you, misinformation is bound to be spread. And so I think it's really important, even if it is an issue of semantics, to be selective with your words.
Did you read that clip as him generalizing and acting like all autistic people are on the far end of the spectrum? Because that's how I read it.
No, that's how I read it.
That's how I
It seemed like he was like just completely general. And you said earlier that essentially, I don't want to misremember what you said, but you said it's almost more offensive for us to assume that all autistic people are one way or another. That's not what we're saying. She made it clear that there's a spectrum. RFK Jr. seems to be focusing in on like the severe end of the spectrum. He seemed to think that like autistic people...
Yes, but you're still speaking in front of Congress, so your words matter.
People en masse can't pay taxes or use the toilet alone.
Or play baseball. Don't forget about baseball.
Or like comb their hair. I don't know. Obviously, we shouldn't be spreading that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're talking semantics. I think we all kind of agree that it is a spectrum and that the people on the severe end, it is, a problem. It's not good for anybody, but that, yeah, I mean, autistic people, it's on a spectrum and they...
I really wish that people like this who, from what I can tell, really have good intentions, but they make it sound like, and this is my, again, going way, way back, this is my big issue, if you guys remember, with Autism Speaks, is that they demonize the mental disorder as something that literally destroys everybody that it touches.
And live, leading successful lives.
I do just want to say, I think that like, in terms of RFK's connection to autism and vaccines, I just don't like the connection. My issue is that these are two separate issues. And to say that vaccines are causing autism is blatantly untrue.
Would you be okay with like just investigating like the possible causes though, even if it
has been investigated?
Yeah, I mean, it has been investigated and it currently continues to be investigated, and I have no issue with that. I think that the issue is that he's spreading misinformation about vaccines in connection to autism, and that is driving down our herd immunity, and we've seen measles outbreaks since Trump and RFK have been in office. And
no, stop it. There has been, this is a lie. There has, oh, God damn it. God damn it. Fucking everything up. There has been no quantifiable increase in measles now compared to Biden, because they're making the headlines right now because it is RFK and Trump in office. Mennonites, Amish have always had these outbreaks.
that's my issue. It's that he's conflating two issues when he doesn't need to.
I want to maybe like leave it on a middle ground. You know, I think we were reaching a middle ground with the single antigen vaccines. And, you know, as somebody that is generally pro-vaccine, I think it is worth looking into why we can't have more access to these single doses.
Why do you think that is?
Well, again, I think in light of what we've seen from the experts, and I want to trust the experts, but I think they lost a lot of credibility, especially when they pushed a vaccine that they explicitly knew was not as efficacious as they claimed it would be. And so I think that there are reasons to believe that there's a monetary incentive for pharmaceutical companies.
Can I ask a question about that?
You have to get a triple dose vaccine. You can't just get measles.
Wouldn't healthcare providers make more money from having people get 3 different vaccines for each thing?
I think that there's, I don't actually know. That's a good
But I
question.
mean, like if you have to come back, like instead of getting one vaccine that is, or one dose that's treating 3 different illnesses that has 3 different vaccines in it, that to me seems almost more cost effective. Like they're losing money by giving people more vaccines instead of having them come back again and again and again.
Well, because if 90% of the population only wanted the measles vaccine, but now they have to get the triple dose, then the pharmaceutical companies are producing more.
Why would you not want all 3? Measles, mumps, rubella have been vaccines that have been given out for decades. So why would you only want the measles? Why are we solely putting this conversation on measles? This guy brought it to the COVID vaccine and how pointless and dangerous that was. And speaking of, did you guys see that they have recommended not to get the COVID vaccine if you're pregnant or elderly, and I think for children too,
of those doses than they otherwise would have if they were just producing doses for the people that
But they're producing more doses if they have to produce 3 different vaccines and every...
But my point is they're only having to produce 3 vaccines because the people that only would want to get measles have to get the other 2. If you want to get vaccinated for just measles, and some parents say, well, I don't want the rubella, I don't want the varicella, I only want to get the measles, and the CDC says, well, you have...
Yeah, this guy's kind of retarded.
Have to get these 3, you're putting parents in a position where they say, well, that's not what I want to do. And I don't think that public health is a good enough justification for infringing on people's individual liberties.
Public health?
Yeah.
You don't think public health is a good enough justification for infringing on people's...
On people's individual liberties, no.
Okay, we're going to get into that on some other
people always try to draw
I'm going to keep that argument in mind.
People always try to draw this dichotomy or make it a trade-off between public health and personal liberty, but I think they go hand in hand. I think having a safe, productive, healthy society means that everybody, not everybody in that society, but at least the vast majority, that you should reach herd immunity when it comes to measles or anything like that. But can I ask a really quick question?
Well, but really quick, but people, we can reach herd immunity if we're giving people the option to take the vaccines they want. That's my point. And I would be on your side. I would be the first one to say,
what if 60% of people don't want to take the measles vaccine? Then we don't reach herd immunity, and then the most vulnerable population is that, and then we're back to 1850, where a third of Hawaii's population died, and years
more options, because giving people the options to take the single dose vaccine, don't you think that would increase the likelihood of people taking it?
Do you think we should give people the option to drink and drive with no seatbelt on, or is there a public safety trade-off there?
I mean, that's basically how all laws.
What? I'm sorry. What?
Are formed.
Is there a public? Should people be able to drink and drive because it's their own individual liberty, or is there a trade-off?
You got me. People
is there a trade-off? Wait, is there any study out there that shows? I'm not going to press you on the study, but are there studies that show that autism is caused by anything? Because the doctor who came up with the vaccine lie in the 90s had his license taken away. Everybody since then has been decredited. There's no proof that autism is caused by anything other than something that happens before you're born.
You know, like I said, I'm vaccinated.
Huh?
I'm pro-vaccine, but I'm also kind of a naturalist type of person, and I think that with the schedule that we've seen develop over the last...
Again, this guy, I feel like, is arguing something he generally does not think is accurate. He doesn't think is true. I feel like what they should have pushed this argument into is the COVID vaccine. They should have pushed it into the COVID vaccine, because that's really, really, really where he can make strong stances against the pharmaceutical companies making untold amounts of money. They are now immune from being sued. He should have pushed it there. I felt like that's where he wanted to push it, but he just couldn't commit to it. But instead, we're talking about this is pretty much like definitive proof given to the best of our knowledge, science. Like, yes, vaccines, MMR vaccines, do not cause autism. We're looking into it, but yeah, the guy who started that theory was exposed. He lied about it. He lost his license. But no, we're here still for some reason.
Last 50 years.
So no studies, just clarifying. There are no studies showing that autism is caused by anything.
Yeah, I don't have any off the top of my head, but I think that, again, it's worth looking into. The significant increase of chemicals that we're injecting into our bodies over the last 50 years, not just in the form of vaccines, but in the form of a lot of different factors.
Foods? Can we talk about the chemicals in foods? Is that allowed to be talked about? Can we talk about that? Can we talk about additives that are put into drinking water? Stuff. What about that? Or do we just immediately go to vaccines?
So I think it's worth looking into.
They're a gift from God. I think vaccines are a gift from God.
I agree that vaccines are a gift from God. Modern medicine is a gift from God. I studied biochem in college. Totally agree. But I also think that it's still worth investigating things. I think it's okay to look into certain types of medicines. I think that there are we've seen that throughout history. Like, there are certain drugs that were prescribed that weren't as efficient. So I don't think there's anything wrong with looking into them. But I do agree that there hasn't been.
I think where the issue comes in about looking into these things is that people were called this, that, and the third. They damn near wanted to make it illegal to do that. But here we are.
And any sufficient studies to say and make that claim.
Maryland Senator Chris Van Hollen has met with Kilmar Abrego Garcia in El Salvador. He's the man who was mistakenly deported there by the Trump administration.
Okay, now this is something I woefully know little. Oh, I'm sorry, Kiro. I can function normally, but it's about the mental continuity. Oh, I tend to eat, but I will take breaks. For instance, when I'm writing, I get so engrossed that I have to force myself off of it to take care of something else. I dig it. Thank you, Kira. I appreciate it. Guys, we are almost 100. No, we are almost 25% to goal. We're one Awoo away from 25% to goal. We do have a new donation, $5.51. That is hilarious. $6 and $14 are new ones from last week. If you guys want to support, you know how to do that. Smash that like, all that stuff, slabs down below. Please make sure you share it out on the Twitters and on the Discords and all that fun stuff. I appreciate it so much, everybody.
The U.S. Supreme Court has called on the administration to facilitate his return, but so far El Salvador's president and the Trump administration have refused to send him back.
Should the U.S. bring back the wrongly deported migrant from El Salvador? 3, 2, 1.
I don't think he should be brought back because 2 judges had confirmed that he had connections to MS-13. I personally think that MS-13 is abhorrent.
No, he had a deportation order, if I remember correctly. No, he should not be brought back.
And morally apprehensible. They hurt children and women. They sex traffic women and children. Latin America, El Salvador was known as the murder capital of the world, one of the worst countries. Citizens of El Salvador couldn't even walk outside their homes without fearing for their lives. And the new president has completely allowed people to walk in freedom, to not be scared for their lives. So I think anyone in association with MS-13 should absolutely face the repercussions of their actions.
Adam, can I take this one real quick?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, so firstly, I do just want to say that Kilmar was never indicted or accused of a single crime in both.
He had a deportation order.
Both the U.S. and in El Salvador. He has no gang relation, And he actually, when he was originally detained in the U.S. for entering the country illegally, he was given asylum because he was a target of MS-13, and they did not send him back
That I
to
don't
El
think that's
Salvador
accurate.
because he was a target of MS-13.
I thought you said he didn't commit any crimes.
Yeah, he entered the country illegally.
Okay, but he was never indicted of a crime.
Wait,
Well, hold on. But do you?
He entered the country illegally, but then was given
that a
asylum.
crime?
Wait, do you
Entering
think
the country,
He should have
fleeing
never
your
entered
country.
in the country illegally.
Wait, do you
There's a
think-
whole line of people trying to come into the country,
But he
and
was
you need
granted
to wait your turn.
asylum. He was granted asylum.
it was
he
a
was fleeing his country.
Let me ask, do you think if someone's here illegally, they should still get due process and constitutional rights?
Absolutely,
Nope.
they should get due process. Sure.
Yeah, like-
and under federal immigration law, the process that he is entitled to is to be deported.
No,
But he
it's not.
wasn't deported.
There was a withholding order of removal in 2019 from a judge, and that withholding order of removal said he cannot be deported to one country in particular. That one country was El Salvador. Now, not only did the Trump administration come out and say it was an administrative error, right? They said that, but then the Supreme Court in a 9-0 ruling said that the U.S. has to facilitate the return of Abrego Garcia, not because they love MS-13. This is something I also want to get down. Do you guys think when I'm saying that Abrego deserves due process, do you think I'm defending MS-13, or do you think I'm defending the Constitution? Because your whole opening was like kind of like, did you think we were going to jump in and be like, wait a minute, no, MS-13
No,
is good?
I don't think you guys think MS-13 is bad. I mean, good, sorry. But also, there were 2 judges that said he did have affiliations with the gang.
No, this
And
was...
so-
No, those
Hold on,
two
really quick.
judges who-
That even the MS-13 thing is irrelevant. In that court,
Look, all of this is irrelevant. If he was deported wrongfully or not, whatever, he was not a citizen of America. He is being held in El Salvador. And the president of El Salvador said, you're not getting him back because he is a gang member.
that court order that you just cited, the Supreme Court, or later, did you read the entire thing?
I mean, the
four pages?
MS-13 thing is not irrelevant because the reason that the Trump administration is not bringing him back, even though they have admitted that it was an administrative error, is because they are saying that he has ties
And he's
to
not
MS-13.
MS-13. He's not
when
MS-13.
he was literally fleeing El Salvador because he was being persecuted by
So
MS-13.
again, crossing the border illegally is a crime under U.S. federal immigration law, and you are subject to deportation. In that Supreme Court
The 4-page
ruling,
one?
in the Supreme Court ruling that you just read, later in it, it said, with due regard to the deference owed by the executive branch conducting foreign affairs, they can't do anything. And so that basically says that the Supreme Court ruled that judges do not have any say over the executive branch's authorities over immigration laws.
Immigration judges
Secondly,
are part of
let me
the
finish.
executive branch.
Secondly,
Immigration judges are a part of the executive branch.
the Supreme Court ruled...
Immigration judges are a part of the executive branch. So when the Supreme
the
Court
fuck up,
says that judges can't overrule the executive, that immigration judge from 2019 was a part of the executive branch. So your argument is completely moot.
So you're saying this judge is acting on behalf of the executive branch?
The
Yes.
immigration judges, are they a part of the judiciary? No, they're a part of the executive branch. So this is the executive branch saying that. And again, the Supreme
It's
Court...
the executive branch saying it against the executive. What?
want to like ignore the other 4 pages of that ruling that say you have to facilitate him. It says your rights do not disappear at the border. It says if the U.S. deports you, they still have jurisdiction of where you are, especially if you're in CCOT.
It said that you had to facilitate, but they can't do anything to have to make that the El Salvadorian government bring them back. So if they wanted to bring them back to America, the U.S. would have to facilitate it in that event. Now, if he got brought to the United States, the withholding order, which by the way, it came out I think yesterday that the withholding order in the last hearing said that he couldn't be deported to Guatemala for some reason.
It's always been El Salvador.
But let's pretend that the withholding order from El Salvador was real.
It is.
If
The Supreme Court said it was real.
Right,
Please do not rewrite this.
If you brought him back,
You just cited
he
the
would be
Supreme Court.
deported immediately because a withholding order and a deportation order are two separate things.
He would
so
not
you
be.
would have to.
No,
Yes, he.
no. The
he
Supreme
is
Court
subject-
said the Supreme Court said that his rights do not disappear at the border, and that he should go through a trial just as anybody else would have been.
He's not a citizen.
Also, when you guys want to cite these hearings where he was found to be MS-13,
I didn't say
these were bond trials where a disgraced former cop who was fired that week said that he thinks Abrego Garcia is MS-13, and if that's enough evidence
But
to
it wasn't just the cop.
if that's enough evidence to deport someone, I hope you never have a bond trial where someone makes up some BS about
No,
you.
but it wasn't
the
just a
problem.
cop,
The problem
it
with
was an
saying that
accusation.
anybody who steps foot over the line that is America and Mexico or whatever the border is, that they get all of the rights that are entitled to American
all
citizens
the
under
rights.
the Constitution.
No, but you do get due
is
process.
ridiculous. And I think under your worldview, you know, everybody is essentially an undocumented citizen of America. And I really have a hard time believing that you would apply.
What was it?
No, but you do get due
is
process.
ridiculous. And I think under your worldview, you know, everybody is essentially an undocumented citizen of America. And I really have a hard time believing that you would apply these same principles to any other country. If I cross into Mexico tomorrow and they deported me immediately, would you say that Mexico should give me due process?
Wait, does Mexico have Article 5 of the Constitution, which says that not citizens but persons? You know what Article 5 says?
So what you're saying is that everybody gets all of the rights under the Constitution. We have to apply our Constitution to everybody of the world.
No, in the U.S.
Just anybody that crosses over.
In the U.S., Article 5 of the Constitution specifically says that all persons in the United States have due process. Now, the framers put persons rather than citizens because it's not just citizens who deserve due process. All persons in the United States deserve due process. This has been upheld by multiple Supreme Court rulings. So what you're arguing for is creating a new class of people within America that have no due process whatsoever. What happens when you create a new class with no due process? You can justify putting anyone into that new class. What if I said that you were a gang member and I never gave you the chance to even defend yourself? Then boom, we deport you, and then I'm debating some MAGA person next month and they're like, oh.
Is he a citizen? This makes no sense. He saw a judge. He had a deportation order. I don't understand what this guy's talking about.
Oh, but Aldo was an MS-13 gang member. Like, you think that everybody should, obviously this is a bad example, but you get where I'm going, right? If you remove due process from one person, you can remove due process from anybody.
I think it's a great question. Let's talk about due process.
Sure.
Over the last 4 years under the Biden administration, upwards of 15 million illegal immigrants crossed into this country. Now, we have a process of immigration, and there are correct ways to do it, and there are incorrect ways to do it. Now, what you're saying is that those 15 million people, all of them deserve trials, all of them deserve our resources.
Not trials.
They deserve a hearing, right?
I mean, a hearing of some sort, but these can go quickly.
So 15 million people deserve trials. Now, we have another amendment in our Constitution, or a hearing. We have another amendment in our Constitution that guarantees the right of citizens to a speedy trial and that due process. And so the problem is when we're saying that everybody that crossed our border the wrong way, and I hope none of you are disputing that, they did it the wrong way.
Sure.
That we have to now take our resources, which are paid for by the American people and are for the American people, now they have to wait because 15 million people decided overnight that they want to be Americans. That is not fair, and that does not respect the due process of American citizens. I went to the border at the height of the Joe Biden.
You do know that illegal immigrants also pay taxes, right? Like it's not
some
in purchases,
and also some of them pay taxes, but also 3 and 5.
This is all irrelevant if we're going to talk about being irrelevant.
Some of them pay taxes, but 3 and 5 illegal immigrants are on taxpayer-funded welfare. They are a drain on the systems, upwards of $160 billion annually. These are FBI statistics.
You can rattle off facts, but the Trump admin illegally deported someone.
Finish.
Sure, you can finish. Yeah.
And so when you're saying that these 15 million people, they woke up overnight, they said they want to be Americans, and now all of them deserve hearings. You know, we have finite resources, and I hope you can say that that is going to put a strain on our systems that are for American citizens. I went to the border in 2022, and the border towns were overrun. You had CBP officers and sheriffs that used their own money to buy water because they didn't want to see kids dying, and they had to feed them their own water. And so the open borders advocates have successfully convinced a large portion of our country that open borders are compassionate. But it is the furthest thing from it. And there's a reason, let me finish, there's a reason that we have due process.
So long. You have to make it a conversation.
So you're right, there is due process.
You really have to make it a conversation, but we're not advocating for an open border. I think that
you quite literally are. Like, that is exactly what you're doing.
You're conflating his argument of due process and advocacy for an open border policy. No one is advocating for an open border policy. What we are advocating for is that the Trump administration has openly claimed that they made an administrative error. Abrego Garcia has already been tried in 2019 and was found to be an asylum seeker and was allowed to stay in this country. So if you're going to just unilaterally, like, they fucked up. They fucked up and they have to bring him back. It's kind of the point. It was a fuck up and he admitted it was a fuck up, but they won't bring him back. And that's creating this kind of slippery slope that the Trump administration can just deem anyone a member of MS-13. And we did this in the last middle ground with Mahmoud Khalil, who was deemed a terrorist because of his connection to pro-Palestinian organizations and was arrested without due process, even though he had also not committed a crime. So now this is the second instance of us seeing this in this country, and that's my fear.
I think, oh, go ahead.
I think also, like, the president of El Salvador met with Trump recently, and there was a video that I saw, like, yesterday or, like, this morning, where even Trump said, even if we wanted to bring him back, the president of El Salvador said that he didn't know if he could do that. So now it's in El Salvador's hands as well. So even if the Biden administration screwed up, like, it's in El Salvador's... No, this is the Trump administration. Sorry, yes. sorry. I mixed that up. Even if the Trump administration screwed up, like, it's still up to El Salvador now.
Well, that is fair. I'm like, but we're just talking about right now. Even if the El Salvadorian government will not bring him back, the Trump administration needs to put forth efforts to bring him back, and they have refused to do that. And that's the argument.
I think also, though, like I was saying, they just had a meeting and they said that they have tried to make efforts, but, and again...
No, they didn't. Trump openly said that he was not willing to do that.
The president of El Salvador was literally meeting with, like, it's on
video.
Okay,
so both of them had said that, but right now we're talking about the American government has now...
He didn't say that. No, they both said that. Okay, but that doesn't matter.
Now claimed that they made an administrative error, has confirmed that this was an error, but has also confirmed that they are not willing to fix this error. How many more errors are we going to see? Like, how many errors do you get in human lives?
Well, to be clear, the error was that there was paperwork filed about the withholding order, and the withholding order said that he couldn't go to El Salvador. So what you're saying...
The error that he was wrongfully deported to an El Salvadorian prison, that's a huge
The error was that they did an illegal deportation.
Right, it was 100%... Again, deporting a person that crossed the border illegally is not a mistake.
Against a withholding order of removal.
They said it was order has nothing to do with the deportation order. If it were to be done...
Was there a deportation order?
Yeah, I finished.
Was there a deportation order? You just mentioned that.
Yes.
For Kilmar Abrego Garcia, there was not.
2019.
That was a withholding order of removal.
No, and withholding order.
That's the opposite of a deportation.
So, Han, I have a question. If he was deported to a country other than El Salvador,
that would have been fine. That would have been illegal.
You would be fine with that?
The administrative error was them being deported. If he got due process, then sure. But the reason that he got deported to El Salvador is because they didn't give him the due process to figure out that there was a withholding order of removal. That's the.
I actually appreciate that. Would you say the same, Naima?
Yes.
That's literally what.
That's what we're saying.
When you guys pick red for this, you're making the argument that the U.S. government can deport anybody and not bring them back.
That crosses the border illegally, yes.
No, anybody and not bring them back.
No,
anybody.
Just people that break the law.
No. How did they know that this? Number one. Anybody. When you create a new class of people with no due process, with no ability for a hearing, no. How do you know they're a criminal if they don't have the ability to defend themselves? But
because they came here illegally. They were caught. They don't have a social security card. How do you know that they're illegal? I don't know, man. How do you know? How do you know?
No, he came into this country without due process. That's illegal.
He then gained due process, and they had a withholding order, which is why he remained in the country. He was already arrested and detained and given his due process, and it was stated that he is allowed to stay here.
So you're actually allowed to claim and seek asylum from outside the country. That's something that you can do, and that's actually the process that
he didn't seek asylum. He actually, a withholding order of removal is a few steps above.
Right, that's my point, is he never actually got asylum. He had a withholding order.
He got something above asylum. It's better than asylum. A withholding order of removal means you can't be deported to a specific place, and the one specific place he was deported to. So, again, when you guys are saying that the Trump admin shouldn't bring them back, there was another Supreme Court ruling.
Well, you're asking us to disregard the rule of law, which is under the Constitution.
No. Holy
shit.
Under the U.S. Constitution, Title 8, Section 1325, I believe, the executive branch has the power to deport immigrants who enter the country illegally. You're asking us to go against the Constitution.
Please, please, please. You guys are completely inverting reality. The Trump administration...
You guys don't claim her in this.
Sorry.
She's just been chilling.
Sorry. The Trump administration is currently going against a Supreme Court ruling, 9-0, that you read, that said that he has to facilitate...
That said executive powers have complete control over foreign policy that includes immigration.
Immigration judges are a part of the executive branch. You know that, right? You don't know that. So if I go back just 1 second, you don't know that. You can laugh all you want. But just going back...
You didn't read the SCOTUS.
I absolutely read the Supreme Court ruling.
It said that they have, with due regard to the deference owed by the executive branch in carrying out foreign affairs.
You are completely inversing reality. Not only is the Trump admin defying a court order, but they defy...
This dude is like, okay, no, you're wrong. You're inversing reality. Won't explain how, because I am 99% sure, unless I have vastly missed something here, that this guy was here illegally. He had a deportation order, got sent to El Salvador. People were upset that he got sent to El Salvador, and now here we are. They were like, are you going to try to bring him back? And the president of El Salvador is like, nah, fuck that dude. Am I missing something here, guys?
A withholding order of removal from 2019. So when the Trump admin breaks the law, admits they break the law, and your whole argument is that somehow... that he was here illegally. You're placing the onus on Kilmar, dude.
Well, you're saying that the judges are the law.
Did the Trump administration...
Are judges the law?
Court orders.
Are judges the law?
No, court orders need to be upheld by the administration. Judges
so you're saying if a judge rules on something, automatically that the courts have to agree with that, or sorry, that they have to agree with whatever the.
I mean, judges are like responsible for upholding the law. Yes.
Right. So recently
Congress defines the law.
So wait, do you disagree with the judge in 2019? That's your argument? You disagree with their withholding order of removal?
Not necessarily, but I disagree with I disagree with the idea that just because a judge says something that it is therefore true.
So the Supreme Court, that doesn't matter.
The Supreme Court absolutely. No, the Supreme Court absolutely.
Okay, so when they say facilitate,
the Supreme Court said that the president has complete control over these matters.
No,
so I agree with
the executive
What I disagree with is that these district courts can rule on a law and that everybody has to follow that.
Okay, so can you guys just explain, going back to the prompt, and concisely why you don't think Kilmar should be brought back? You know that him being illegal isn't a good explanation because him being illegal doesn't remove his due process. So what's the justification?
So under our Constitution,
Article 5.
Right, you have, no, I'm talking about, I think it's Title 8, 1325, immigration, if you cross the border illegally, you are subject to deportation, period.
No, not period, unless you have a withholding order of removal.
And the Supreme Court ruled
that
the executive branch has power to deport him.
We are going in circles right now. We are going in circles. I want you to look this up later.
Because you're not making any sense. Yes, they can be deported. Not if they don't have this. Yes, they can. I don't understand.
Are immigration judges a part of the judicial or the executive branch? It's going to say executive, and then we can go back to the 4-page Supreme Court ruling that you accused me of not reading, even though I read it multiple times going into this, and you'll see that they were referring to not only the executive branch and the immigration judges, but they say your rights don't vanish at the border. If the rights vanish at the border, the Trump admin could pluck people out while they're sleeping in the middle of the night, deport them and say, we don't have the jurisdiction to bring them back. And we're talking about tariff guy. The tariff guy doesn't have the power to tariff El Salvador and bring the dude back. Like, just put tariffs on them. It's that simple.
I honestly don't think that we're going to come to an agreement on this topic. As it stands,
why,
we're not.
Why would we? Why should we? Why should we go out of our way and impose tariffs on a friendly nation for a gang member? Is that what he thinks we should do because he doesn't like the idea that the gang member was deported? In this argument, well, he's not MS-13, he's running from MS-13. He's got MS-13 tattoos. It walks like a duck, quacks like a duck, etc. So I'm missing the point here.
Advocating for open borders, but we are advocating that you uphold the laws of this country and the Constitution.
Harvard University is now suing the Trump administration over those multi-billion-dollar cuts to research funding for the school. Harvard is calling it in this suit unconstitutional and illegal.
Should Harvard lose federal funding? 3, 2, 1. Sweet. I want to hear what you have to say. Why do you say no?
I think that institutions should be able to make individual decisions, for me personally. I think that, there was a whole thing with Harvard recently about where they're donating.
Okay, how about, why don't we go with letting the one dude dictate every topic of conversation here is really fucking annoying. Why don't we start with, why does Harvard deserve taxpayer money? What have they done to... Why do they need taxpayer money?
Their money, and a lot of people were mad about that as well. I think institutions have the right to donate their money to places, even if I don't agree with it.
Period.
I think that any private institution shouldn't be receiving, taxpayer dollars. Not even getting into the ideological differences between Harvard. I agree with nOoOo. I think that if you're a private institution, donate to whoever you want. But I don't want my tax dollars going to a private institution, especially those with a $50 billion endowment. I just think it's inefficient, and I think that money could be better used, spent directly on the American citizens.
Deporting immigrants.
Yes.
Literally yes. But not just to students that are going to this, not just going to this private university.
Okay, yeah, that's a different argument, or that's a different conversation.
They cannot let that go, can they? They cannot just let that go.
That we can have. But do you ever find it scary that the Trump administration, in their first roughly 100 days, have targeted multiple law firms, gotten law firms to bend the knee, have targeted universities, have targeted Act Blue? Do you see how the Trump administration is kind of overreaching in trying to create this chilling effect among universities where they can't teach certain topics? Can you see where I'm coming from when I see that?
Explain.
So when the Trump administration They get in and they immediately begin to apply pressure, put their thumb on the scale of what schools can teach, who they can hire, what their curriculum can be. It creates this chilling effect where then even if Harvard says no, other schools, for example, are like, hey, we don't have the legal...
Ask him to explain that. Ask him to explain what that means, because that made no fucking sense.
We don't have the money to fend this off. We might as well just change what we teach. And then you see this chilling effect across the country where law firms are scared to speak out because they're getting attacked by the Trump admin. Universities are...
Law firm... What? I'm sorry. What is he talking about?
Scared to teach certain things because they're getting attacked by the Trump admin. And it's all a play to consolidate power and make sure that checks on you aren't there, like universities. And did you hear about the law firm?
No, what was the law firm?
Trump's been attacking a bunch of law firms
I did hear about
trying to get them to do pro bono work, and this all just ties into a really clear picture of the Trump admin trying to put their thumb on the scale when they shouldn't, and being a little bit authoritarian, a little bit fashy.
It's a little fashy. I mean, it's like a textbook. It's honestly textbook fascism. I mean, the whole anyone who opposes me, I attack and I deny and I remove funding is the issue. If he was going to unilaterally remove funding from every private college in America, that's a different.
What private college in America is Trump pro-funding? Or, now follow me here. This is going to be a little bit of a walkthrough. Is it the private colleges that, I don't know, charge their students tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars in tuition?
Different thing. But he is specifically attacking Harvard because Harvard refused to comply with his executive orders on DEI, which, by the way, are illegal. The executive branch doesn't get to ban DEI.
I guess here we can start here. If you accept our framing...
No, they do not. The executive branch does not get to ban DEI, but I believe that they are well within their rights to pull funding from stuff that they don't want to.
What we just laid out, is that bad that the Trump admin is doing that? Question for both of you.
Well, it's interesting. With a lot of the measures that Trump is taking, I see them as a lot of correcting, right? I think the Biden administration really ushered in a lot of progressive policies, and that did kind of enable universities in the opposite direction, right? Maybe not putting their thumb to try to tell universities not to do something. I think the Biden administration did a lot to tell universities to do things, like what? Like implementing DEI and promoting progressive sort of social causes.
Can I
whatever
ask an
that
example of what Biden did to promote DEI?
Right, may I finish? And so I think some of these Trump things are correcting them. But like I said, I think the biggest thing is I don't think that private universities with $50 billion endowments should be receiving my taxpayer dollars. Would you agree with that premise?
So now can I ask my question? Can we go back to my question? What did the Biden administration do to encourage DEI in private universities?
So, I mean, I think I don't have something off the top of my head, but when I can go back to your question, when you talk about administrations like putting their thumb and scaring people, acting fascistically, you're almost making it seem like this is very unique to Trump, and obviously it's not fascistic.
No, it's not.
I think it was 2014.
Bring it back to Biden. Bring it back to Biden.
No, I'm going to go back further. I'm going to go back to the Obama days when you look at previous administrations. I think we've seen people of all different political spectrums.
Wow, these two on the left are fucking insufferable. These two on the left are fucking terrible.
Try to put their thumb on things and guide them in a direction that they want. That can sometimes be good. That can sometimes be bad.
But you're saying that Trump is correcting things that Biden did, but you have no examples of.
So one example is discriminatory admissions processes, where white students and Asian students were explicitly discriminated against for immutable characteristics, the color of their skin. And I think it is a benefit that Trump is going in there and saying, hey, these universities, they have to be based on merit. And if somebody has a very high ACT score, but their skin color happens to look a little lighter and they're Asian, they should have just as many opportunities as the person that has darker skin color.
That is fundamentally not how DEI functions.
We could talk about DEI. That's a separate conversation. There's no evidence of the Biden administration.
Billy Bob, you never answered my question. In the chat Sunday night, were you quoting Butcher Baby lyrics?
Or any other administration having a top-down effort to try to change the way that you.
And guys, I don't know if you were at the Sunday show. Check out the new donation at $5.51. Yes. Fuck yeah. I knew it.
universities can teach and hire and run their curriculum and run on a day-to-day basis. We could talk about the Obama 2014 thing. I'm assuming if that is...
Have you ever had the chance to see Butcher Babies live? Fuck that 551. No, check it out. It's fun.
True, you're framing. Did it get challenged by courts? Did the courts at all?
I think it dissipated before because of the scandal.
I'll look into this later. It must have gotten challenged by courts, but Harvard immediately fired back. And you know what's funny with it?
They're very good live. I saw them on accident. My buddy and I went to a it was a Cradle of Filth show that was opened by Ne Obliviscaris, which, oh my fucking god, if nobody's hip to Ne Obliviscaris, get hip. They're amazing. And Butcher Babies, and I was just hooked.
Trump admin. After Harvard said they're not going to cow to the Trump admin, Trump then said the entire thing was an accident. Did you see this? They didn't even mean to send Harvard the letter. They said it was an accident. That's a side point.
So is everything the Trump admin doing, is everything they do an accident?
Again,
they're having a lot of accidents.
A lot of accidents. There's zero evidence of top-down fasci workings coming like this from any other admin. And the Trump admin is unique in that way. We could talk about his rhetoric surrounding the media, attacking the media. We can talk about the way that he leverages his admin to like sue universities. And
how he sued people from his past administration for following the laws.
Like, do you,
so as a matter of principle, do you think that it is a positive thing that private universities receive federal funding?
I don't know. I don't. That's a complete.
You're literally sticking up for that right now. You're literally trying to say that private universities are entitled to taxpayer money.
Red herring.
Well, it was the prompt.
That federal universities.
But it's not. But here's my issue.
I want to.
No, I'm going to answer your question.
Say one more
Can I
time.
answer your question?
Yeah.
Well, the prompt was, should Harvard receive federal funding? And so, just as a basic question, do you guys think it's generally positive that private universities receive federal funding?
Sure.
Yes, I do.
Yes?
And I will say.
Why?
To your question, if the issue is that you.
Not gonna lie, it's kind of hard to take anyone with 20 at the front of their birth year and saying fascism. Yeah, they don't understand. I just think that these people don't know what actual fascism is.
You do not like that private universities receive federal funding. Why is it only Harvard? That's how.
And there were specific demands too. This is a complete red herring because the Trump admin made specific demands related to DEI and everything. So
it's not like he's saying, I'm going to withhold federal funding from every private institution. He called this particular institution out. It's an immediate cause and effect relationship. He told them to do something.
No, wait, stop. She misspoke. Argument invalid.
On the grounds that it violated their First Amendment rights as a university. And then he immediately punished this institution and only this institution.
Can I try to find some middle ground here?
Yeah.
I will say, though, I think that private institutions should not receive any sort of federal funding, but that's across the board.
Yes,
I don't like
Slay.
a big government trying to tell individual institutions what to do, hence why I decided to pick the color I did. But I don't think that any private institution should get federal funding. I think that should go to public institutions where a lot of students need those resources more.
I think that's a very fair argument. But, you know, in the context of this conversation, that's not what he said.
Yeah.
It's like a specific target on just Harvard, and that's what I have issue with. If he has an issue with federal funding to private institutions, then the way to go about kind of moving some of that funding over to public institutions is not just attacking Harvard.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Yeah.
So can you see where we're coming from? Can you at least empathize? Imagine you were.
I can.
Imagine you were soy boy.
Can you empathize? Wait, hold on. What's he saying?
Sure.
Yeah.
So can you see where we're coming from? Can you at least empathize? Imagine you were.
I can.
Imagine you were a soy boy liberal for 1 second. Can you empathize with my point of view? I know it hurts. Empathize. When I see the President of the United States in an unprecedented way putting his thumb on the scale, trying to attack universities, law firms, the media, for sure. You can't deny he attacks the media.
Yeah, the media deserves it. I don't think anybody with a rational mind. What was it like outside of Fox News, and not even excluding Fox News, but like it was like 95% negative coverage of Trump, or like 98 negative coverage of Trump. Why is he attacking the media? I fucking wonder, man.
Hasn't he sued multiple, like ABC recently?
NPR.
All of these different lawsuits. Does that not worry you that it's executive overreach? Can you see where we're coming from?
For suing people?
No, not just suing people, but using the executive branch to place pressure on universities and law firms and media.
Do I see that as a problem? Not necessarily, no.
Why not?
Because I think if he's fighting for things that need to be done, then
what if we replace the word Trump with Biden?
Yeah, if this was a liberal administration,
that is literally what
this
Biden
is
did.
horrible. Oh my God.
well, like I said, sometimes it can be good and sometimes it can be bad.
Okay, so it's
your
only
thumb on
good
the
when it's
scale-
people you agree with. Got it.
Well, putting your thumb on the scale to influence the country is kind of what politicians and the president do.
No, that's not the
That's
argument.
not how that works.
Okay, so there exists something called checks and balances. Oftentimes, courts or law firms or all of these things exist.
Wait, have we been napping the past like 6 years? Or didn't Biden like actively pursue criminal cases against his political opponents? Are we just pretending that didn't happen? What about the January 6ers who never got due process that we now suddenly want them so badly for people who shouldn't be here in the first place? Am I missing something here?
As a check on the executive branch. What Trump is doing is intentionally eroding all of these checks by attacking the courts. Even Supreme Court Justice Alito had to come out recently and say, Trump, you got to stop calling to impeach judges. It's not the place of the president to call to impeach judges without due process. So we can go across the board with like courts, universities, everything.
But other presidents and presidential candidates can talk about packing the court to outweigh those judges? Is this dude serious? Then again, I mean, these cats are young. This dude might have been like 6 when he first heard this from a president. Like, I don't know. Like, was it that long ago, buddy?
Trump is always applying pressure in a way that he shouldn't be, not as the president, not going through Congress and passing some law. And I just want to know if you can empathize with my point of view there.
I just think that he's doing the will of the American people, and I love to see it.
Wow, what a politician answer. What a politician answer. You're like Vivek Ramaswamy, bro.
Oh, don't compare me to him.
Yeah.
Why?
Honestly, it's
okay, fine, JD Vance.
I think we can all at least agree that private institutions could be treated
Yeah, bro, you sound like you fuck couches.
equally, either all receive funding or all not receive funding. I think we found some common ground there. But individual institutions shouldn't be punished for their personal decisions or individual decisions.
International students stripped of legal status in the U.S. are piling up wins in court. So our question is, should Trump restore foreign students legal status?
No. Well, maybe.
3, 2, 1.
Interesting. I can jump in. I think it should obviously be a case-by-case basis, but I've seen some reports of people getting speeding tickets or minor infractions or posting on social media and getting their visas stripped away. And I think overall that's just harmful to what America is.
Yeah, but you're in the country as... Damn, I feel like we're talking about the same shit we talked about last week. Right here, same spot. You're in this country as a guest, and as a guest you don't get to shit on my carpet and me go, oh, well, thank you for that. I appreciate that. I don't want to be called a racist for you shitting on my carpet.
The reason we're so great is because of brain drain. We drain the smartest people from other countries. They come over here, they contribute to our society. And if we show people that, hey, if you get a speeding ticket, you got to go, but we're willing to elect a president with 34 felony convictions, I don't think that creates a good, cohesive, smart society.
I actually agree with part of what you said. I don't think that for really petty things that we should be deporting students. We're a rational actor, and I don't think it's in our best interest to be...
No, jaywalking and speeding, probably not, but DUI, shit like that, yeah. Actual crimes, non-protected crimes.
Sending that message to the rest of the world, hey, your student littered, let's deport him immediately. I don't think that's productive. But when we think of petty crimes and these deportations, you know, we're not talking about jaywalking. We're not talking about littering. We're talking about students that are coming over here. They're guests in our country on a foreign visa, and then they're advocating for things that go against our foreign policy or going against American values and American ideas.
But is
advocating and I think that as every other country on earth understands that when you're a guest, you have to know the culture, know the laws, be respectful. And just like any other country on earth, if you went there and you started disrespecting the government and going against their agenda, they would say, hey, you know, if you don't want to be here and you don't like our country, there's the door. And I don't see any problem with America.
I think there's a big difference between breaking the law and saying something that about the government that they don't like. I think there's a big difference.
But the question is advocating for personal political beliefs.
What's up, Fustonia? How you doing, buddy? Missed you yesterday.
That go against the beliefs of the current administration. Is that a crime?
Just kidding. I knew you were there.
Crime?
Not necessarily, no.
So it's not a crime. So you're saying that people should be deported because they disagree with you, even
No,
if they haven't committed a crime?
I never said that.
But you just said that students who come here and advocate against the government should be deported.
In some cases, yes. In some cases, yes,
but it's not a crime.
No, I am taking the free speech side here, and I know it might not be popular, but I am a free speech absolutist. There is nothing wrong with sharing your opinion on the government. I could, if it was legal, I could go to any other country in the world where it is legal and go, man, I don't really care for this too much.
Well,
but the specific case they're talking about here, and I feel like it bears repeating, is that chick from Florida, I believe. She was deported for not actively advocating against America, for actively advocating against Israel.
Again, I think that, you know, and take Hong Kong as a good example.
Fustonia.
You know, they have the students there. They have the Lenin walls. Have you ever heard of a Lenin wall?
No, explain it.
Lenin wall is they put up these posters, and it's, you know, posters, post-it notes, and it's a wall basically of freedom fighters and pro-democracy things. And it's a very common occurrence over there for Chinese nationals that are over on student visas to come over, and they tear these Lenin walls down because they're ultra-nationalists and they are promoting communism, and they want to promote the CCP in Hong Kong. Now, I think it's perfectly reasonable for people in Hong Kong and the government of Hong Kong to say, hey, we are a democratic nation, we are not communists, and if you want to study in our country and you want to study under our values, then you cannot advocate for communism in our education system. I think that's perfectly fine.
I was just telling you earlier, I think America should be more like Hong Kong with our speech rules, right?
Yeah, and I think that America should have that right as well. And I think, oh, go ahead.
No, I think that I don't think anyone should be kicked out for having different ideologies. I agree that America is really unique in the way where we bring the best and brightest to our country, and it makes our country all the better. But I will say, in terms of different crimes, and I know we mentioned petty crimes, I don't think like littering, jaywalking, someone should be kicked out for that. But I do think that, like, if you are drunk driving or if you are doing something pretty significant to that level, I do think that there should be a high standard for being a guest in this country. And so that's my issue. I feel like we've kind of lowered the bar sometimes, and I think if you're a guest, you need to treat the country with respect. Again, that doesn't mean you can't disagree. You can disagree, but there has to be a...
Sharing your opinion is fine. Posting on Twitter is fine. Being part of a violent protest, I think that should be a line you have to go. But it wasn't that. If you remember last week, it was the girl wrote an op-ed for the school newspaper, and they kicked her out for being anti-Israel for some reason.
Level of respect. I think that, you know, burning the U.S. flag, which we don't have to get into that, but I think that there's certain things that you need to do to just be grateful for being allowed the opportunity to study in a country.
I completely agree with you.
While I don't think it should be illegal to burn the U.S. flag, I think if you come to America, you're staying in our country as a guest and you're burning the flag, yeah, go home. Yeah, we don't care for you here. Go on home. That's fine.
That statement. In terms of petty crimes, if you're committing like a serious misdemeanor like drunk driving, I mean, that's a serious crime.
Yeah.
You know, people die that way. Like, I've had a cousin who broke his neck drunk driving. Like, that's a serious fucking crime.
Yeah.
Absolutely don't bring danger into this country. Get out. At the same time, your point was not about DUIs and drunk driving and crimes that are actually a danger to public safety. You were saying that people who are speaking out against the government should have to leave. And that, to me, is much more difficult to justify because those aren't crimes. You cannot prove that that's a danger to public safety, and there's no real reason that someone who's coming here should not be allowed to practice their First Amendment right, especially if they are coming here legally through a student visa.
I agree with you a lot. I think the First Amendment is one of the most important amendments that we have. When we look at other countries, people are not allowed to speak against authoritarian regimes, and I'm extremely against that. We see throughout history of people wanting to stand up for what's good and against bad governments, and they can't because there's laws against that. So I agree with you a lot in that. Again, like, my focus is mainly crimes, like serious crimes, but I don't think that anyone should be like persecuted or kicked out for having a different opinion. I think the First Amendment is across the board. I think that there needs to be regulations and standards. And so again, like, that's why I mentioned the crimes, the more serious crimes. I think that is important to have high standard for if you're a guest in this country, you need to uphold certain criteria.
So can we draw some lines? If you get a speeding ticket, can we all agree you probably shouldn't lose your visa for a speeding ticket? But then if you drunk drive, you should absolutely lose.
Well, that depends. Are you going 35 and a 25, or are you going 85 and a 35? Because there's a bit of a difference there.
Lose your visa. That's probably a line we can draw right there. You said something about burning the American flag. I do think that falls under the First Amendment, right? I think anybody should be able to burn the American flag.
It also depends on where you're burning it. I mean, if you're burning it like in a church, maybe
okay, of course.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, there's nuance in that.
Here's the main worry that I think Naima was getting to. When one administration begins to strip visas away because of someone's political beliefs, what happens when the next administration wants to do the same thing, and then you don't have a coherent, like, reason why you're stripping?
I wish people would keep this in mind, because every time we have this exact conversation, if you advocate for laws against that are specifically made to target the side you don't like, they will be used against you.
Visas away, and then it's a slippery slope of administrations passing each other off and just deporting visas. And then you're one of the smartest people in China, and you're like, I don't know if I want to be a doctor in America. I'm probably going to get my visa stripped away by the next administration.
You know, again, I think it's things like going against American values. If somebody's coming over here as a guest in our education system and they're saying that the Constitution needs to be eradicated and the rule of law needs to be eradicated, and oh, the Second Amendment this and the free speech this, you know, we can't have that. I think that's grounds to, again, say, if you don't like this country, if you don't like how we do it over here, then there's the door. But I think the deeper principle, which I hope we can all agree on, is that, you know, our resources, our public services are paid for by the American people and for the American people. And so that very principle, you know, means that if you have a guest here and we have to deal with them in any capacity, then we are diverting resources away from the American people that now have to go to somebody that is a guest in our country. And we should have high standards for things like that.
I agree that we should have high standards, but I also don't think that there's universal American values. I think that if you ask all four of us at this table what we believe the best American values are, we would all have a different answer. So I don't think that you can regulate how...
I would be shocked if everybody... I don't know why I just try to repause that. I would be shocked if everyone at that table did not say freedom is a great American value. Freedom of speech, freedom of movement, freedom of association, freedom of religion. Like, is the First Amendment not the greatest American value?
Well, a student on a visa agrees or disagrees with American values when you cannot define American values as one singular thing. But what we can agree on is that people who come here on student visas need to obey the laws and not be a threat to public safety.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, you know, agree-ish.
I have one question for you. Is there any speech that a student could say that you think would deem deporting or revoking a visa?
I think speech that incites violence, and there's a clear, after due process, there is a clear connection to their speech and a violent incident or occurrence, I think that would be worth deporting.
Do you think a threat is fair to deport someone?
I think if someone was doing harassing speech or a speech that was a threat to someone else, a threat to harm of someone else, that again falls under inciting violence. And I think that's speech, but we have rules on that type of speech. There are laws about that type of speech that apply to Americans as well.
What if somebody's promoting fascism or white supremacy?
That's under the First Amendment.
Yeah.
They shouldn't have the student visa shouldn't be revoked? They're not like green card holders, they're visas, right?
Yeah. I think it still falls under the First Amendment. I think that obviously I wouldn't want that to happen, but I think that it's a slippery slope when you begin to strip visas.
Man, these people really don't know what they're talking about, do they?
The way based on what people say, because you said something earlier that I think Naima pinpointed really well. You said if you're going against American values, and Naima was saying American values, that means different things to different people. So again, what if the next admin is like, well, our American values are DEI and trans people in every bathroom, and some immigrant doesn't want that, and then we're like, get out of here. You know, you can't have this slippery slope. We should probably just stick to the Constitution and... Yeah.
And with free speech comes some concessions. I mean, obviously, I'm very much against white supremacy and white supremacist ideology. But if I want my right to free speech, and if I want students who do align with my values to have their right to free speech, then I do have to make room for speech that I don't like. And I think that's something we all just have to accept.
Now, please keep that in mind. Please, pretty please, just keep that in mind. I don't know why, but I feel like that's going to become... necessary to discuss later.
2020, and I'm forcing TikTok's parent company to sell the app, or else I'll ban it.
Comes head to head with a Chinese-owned video app.
I'll see you in court.
Emotions will run red hot.
It's 2021, and I'm stopping this TikTok ban malarkey. I'm gonna get even more popular.
But old suspicion.
No, what? No, Biden was the pro-TikTok ban guy. What are you talking about? The Biden administration was the one who wanted to ban TikTok. That's so dumb. Am I missing something here? What? That was the Biden administration. What are you lying about right now?
Die hard.
Listen, Joe, we've been talking about it, and we want to ban TikTok if its parent company doesn't sell the app. I'll sign that bill. You're doing the right thing. I've gone dark.
And old rivalries can become something more.
I'm president again. Let's pause all this for 75 days.
Will TikTok be banned? Coming June 18th.
No, TikTok should never be banned. We know exactly why they wanted to ban it. We know everything that happened. It was specifically because the Biden administration had no say over the content on the site. Stop playing with my emotions.
Well, that was really...
Okay. Will TikTok ever be banned? 3, 2, 1.
Nope.
Perfect. Next segment. No, but for real, there's another conversation. Should it be banned?
No.
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 If we care about cybersecurity and we care about our information being sold, we would have had this discussion about Facebook and Twitter and Snapchat and all of the rest of them about 15 years ago. We are so far past the point of using security and information breach as a justification to delete these apps. It's never going to get banned.
I 100% agree with that, actually.
But the argument...
Period.
I disagree. I don't stop celebrating.
What?
I disagree.
What? No.
I disagree. All right, listen. The argument with Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg owns Facebook, right?
Mm-hmm.
But TikTok is owned by ByteDance, which is a vehicle of the CCP. So the argument with
Shut up, stupid.
Facebook and Instagram, which I guess both fall under Meta right now, but that's different than TikTok. The argument with TikTok that the Supreme Court making is that it's a unique
TikTok is dumb and deserved to be banned anyway. I sent you a thing on TikTok. Nice, Sam.
threat due to the fact that ByteDance owns it and they funnel American data. You know, it's not even about having our data. I have nothing to really hide from China. I don't care, but it's about the fact that they can then put their thumb on the scale and influence US elections. They can try to promote all of these different, imagine how much of a win it is for China. If they can promote anti-Semitism, Islamophobia.
Okay, anti-Semitism and Islamophobia.
Also while promoting misogyny and racism. And then I know I'm using all of
Okay, so it promotes things that you don't like. Yes, just that. Say that. It promotes the speech I don't like. Weird that the guy who just said speech is something that needs to be protected is now advocating a ban on something he didn't like.
the isms, but then you have a less cohesive American society where everybody hates each other, and then boom, China gets to sit back. Wow.
But Adam, I will say, TikTok doesn't even exist in China. Like the Chinese government doesn't even allow TikTok in
That's
China.
a good point. That is a great point for my argument. If China doesn't allow it, why should the U.S. allow it?
The other problem with that argument.
actively restricting free speech is the point.
Yeah, but this doesn't have to do with free speech. This is more about
It does,
ownership.
though. I mean, millions of people use TikTok as a social platform, including you.
Well,
don't
I
you?
do, but here's the thing. You can have these same conversations on different platforms. It's not even about the conversations or what people are saying. It's about the platform they're having.
But can I ask, what is stopping Zuck at Meta from selling our data to China? Literally anyone can sell our data to China, and you're saying that just because ByteDance is a Chinese company means that it's more of a threat in doing that. But anyone can sell our data to China, and a lot of these companies have our data. And I feel like the fact that only TikTok is being attacked in this way is
And also, your argument doesn't really address.
Yeah, again, and if you guys remember, a long time ago in a stream far, far away, had this argument with Senior Dub that the fact that they're trying to say that it is absolutely data protection. We have to protect our data. We have to protect our data. Meanwhile, we're using fucking Facebook, we're using Instagram, we're using Twitter, like we're using all these sites that rely on our data. So it's got to be one or the other.
That's the fact that, you know, you're assuming that the content that's misogynist, sexist, and all the rest can't be found on other platforms, which I disagree
No,
with.
it can be, but the argument is that China or ByteDance or the CCP, they're boosting this type of divisive content. Like, if I made the argument that a lot of the pro-Palestinian protesters were sparked by online propaganda, would you agree with that? The pro-Palestinian protests that happened?
That they were sparked
by online propaganda, yeah.
In part.
Do you think that it benefits China when they can spread disinformation online and then cause protests in the U.S. where we have a less cohesive society, eventually maybe leading to Trump getting into office? You can see how they'd want to influence our elections and our...
Yes, but I don't... Misinformation spread through other formats too, like not just TikTok. You know, like the news spreads misinformation all the time, both left and right. So it's like, why am I just going to ban TikTok when TikTok helps so many businesses? Like so many small businesses have grown from it. Creators, like it's been a net positive too for our economy as well.
And there's also, you know, just like a diverse array of beliefs on TikTok.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like ByteDance has made an effort to specifically silence a singular point of view.
No, and that's the issue that these people don't like. They don't want, you know, anything they deem as horrible, evil, right-wing to be on the platform. Well, at least the Biden administration didn't. Hint, 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 hint.
Unless Tiananmen Square, sometimes you can't search that on TikTok.
But, you know, I will say I've seen just content from creators that's both right-leaning and left-leaning. I mean, if TikTok was creating an effort to censor one group over another and promoting an agenda through the algorithm, then that would be a big issue. But I think that there is a diverse array of opinions on TikTok, and I don't think that that's a huge issue.
Who uses TikTok here?
I do.
I have it downloaded. I never use it.
I totally use it.
I didn't use it until I went viral, to be honest with you.
You know, I think the best argument...
Charlie?
Yeah.
The
that
best
was the first time I downloaded TikTok.
I really like the argument of small businesses on TikTok. I know there are like hundreds of thousands of small businesses that rely solely on TikTok, so I do understand that. I mean, I run part of my business through TikTok, so this isn't even an argument about like that. I just think that overall, I listened to the Supreme Court's oral hearing on it, and it was really interesting because they all seemed pretty convinced that they had some data that China is not. I'm pretty sure there was a moment where half of the Democratic congressmen didn't want to vote on the ban of TikTok, but then the congressmen and women went and got information in some sort of skiff, and when they came back out, they're like, TikTok's got to go. So maybe I'm putting too much.
It's called the whips, man.
Maybe I'm putting too much trust, but I'm pretty sure there's some data out there that shows that TikTok is selling our information. Also, it doesn't have to be banned.
Also, they're a bunch of boomers. They don't know anything about TikTok.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, even though we disagree on if it maybe should or shouldn't be banned, I think it's actually kind of encouraging that we all think that it won't be.
I'm mostly manifesting.
We all agree the government's too inefficient to ban TikTok.
That part.
True.
For sure.
Yeah.
Cool. Terrifying vape warning as super fit 17-year-old gets killer popcorn lung. Kids are dying, doctors say. Is vaping causing a teen health crisis?
It's no more than literally anything else. No bigger crisis than literally anything else, guys.
3, 2, 1.
Hey!
Nice, we all agree again.
Look at that.
Welcome to the dark side.
Yeah, no, I'm glad that we all agree on this. I think this is something that was normalized for a while. Vaping, I don't know, it was really popular in high school, college, like everyone had a vape. But I've seen a progression, especially just within close friends, of where it starts with a vape and then it goes into other things. I know a lot of people who've had...
Vaping is a gateway drug, vape. Uh-huh.
A lot of mental health issues because of it as well. So I think it's a huge issue.
Mental health because of vaping? What?
Can I ask a question, you guys?
Yeah.
Do any of you vape?
Absolutely.
You do?
I do. I mean, not anymore, but I did for a while, yeah.
Yeah, I started vaping when I was...
Yeah, that's how I quit smoking cigarettes. And if you guys didn't know, I am on... tomorrow, I believe, will be 1 week. No cigarettes.
16 and I still have a nicotine addiction, and I'm 22 now. So it's been like 6 years. I have never been an adult without a nicotine addiction. And I started because some people who I thought were really cute and really cool were vaping, and you know, it was offered to me and I didn't know about the health implications. I didn't know how addictive nicotine was. I thought nicotine was only addictive through cigarettes. I didn't realize it would be an issue for me. And
Why the fuck? Why the fuck would you think that nicotine was only addictive through cigarettes? This woman's retarded.
Literally 6 years later, like I used to vape in my fucking sleep.
Oh yeah, you wake up in the middle of the night and you reach around your bed and you're looking for it.
When
and
you
like,
can't find it, you're like you're like the squirrel in Ice Age.
I've killed a family over a vape before.
It's crazy. You're stupid. No, it's ridiculous, and like it's so addictive. Like nowhere near as addictive as I thought it was. You know.
I think the big issue too is they're marketed, you know, towards our age group. Like, do you think that you would have picked up vaping or stuck with it if the only flavored vapes you could get were like tobacco leaf flavor?
Honestly, I kind of love the tobacco flavored ones, but
I smoke a mint vape. I smoked full flavored cigarettes, Reds, but I smoke a mint vape. I am that kind of guy.
I'm weird.
No, bad example. Bad example.
Your point is valid. I mean, like when I moved out to Cali, they have these things. They're called geek bars, and I don't know if you guys have seen them, but when you hit them, it literally has like constellations and stars on them, and they're all different colors, and it's like pina colada, fun, gay time. Like it's so stupid.
I know you're getting cravings just talking about it.
No, literally. I actually did quit vaping, but now I just smoke cigarettes. That's my life.
So I also want to ask, do you think if we were having this conversation like 100 years ago, the prompt would be about cigarettes, and we'd all be like, and honestly, if it was about cigarettes, we could all give the same answer. But is there an argument to be made that young people vaping en masse is better than smoking cigarettes en masse?
No, totally disagree.
I think vaping is way, way worse. As someone who's been addicted to both, I think vaping is way, way worse because you can literally do it anywhere.
Right, that's the problem. If you were taking it puff.
Yeah, that's why it's a good thing.
For puff, cigarettes might be worse, but it's the way that people use it. People smoke a cigarette, and I'm a huge nicotine person. I used to do chewing tobacco.
I'm hitting my Breeze Prime Mint right now.
I realized that was bad for me. I smoked cigarettes for about a year when I was doing manual labor down in Texas, just habitually.
Yeah.
But
cigarettes are so much worse than vapes. For one thing, I don't have to smell a vape. Like I can now, especially, I can smell somebody smoking a cigarette. Like if somebody was outside right now and I had a window open, I could smell someone smoking a cigarette. Like, there's a big difference.
It was pretty easy to quit. I quit after the year, and I never smoked a cigarette.
And the cigarettes, the gross of it gets on everything.
But two, when I would smoke a cigarette, it was going out. You'd smoke a cigarette. You have 7 or 8 puffs or however many it is. And then you don't smoke again for 4 to 8 hours or whatever it was. I wasn't an avid smoker.
4 to 8 hours? Who the fuck do you know that's smoking one cigarette every 8 hours? What? The fuck out of here.
With vapes, like you said, it's the method in which they use it. You're vaping constantly, day after day, hour after hour. It's insane.
Cigarettes, I think since I've transitioned from vaping to smoking, I consume so much less nicotine. Cigarettes, I mean, it's inconvenient. You have to go outside. It's cold. It's night. Like you don't want to go out. Like you smell like shit. All your friends are like, it smells like cigarettes. You're like, is that weed? Like it's so much.
Okay,
more work.
You're consuming less nicotine, but aren't there like 1,000 other chemicals in cigarettes that aren't there in vapes?
I mean, there's nickel in vapes. There's lead in vapes, and vapes are disgusting. Honestly, to the younger generations, do not ever start smoking anything, but please stay away from vapes. It's so unhealthy.
These people are dumb.
It's if I could go back in time and change anything about my adult.
And if you too think they are dumb, please hit the like button. Please share it out on your socials. And if you want to support, you know how to do that. Streamlabs listed down below. Anything you want to throw in the head is greatly appreciated. We're almost 25% to go. We have 1 new donation, etc., etc.
Lessons, that's like top 2.
You know they're not going to listen to you. I wouldn't have listened to someone if they...
I know.
I have a story that maybe will dissuade some people. I had a buddy in college in my fraternity, and somebody went into the bathroom super late at night. It was like 3 a.m. They saw the shower was on, and they opened it up, and there was one of our friends there curled up into a ball, and he had a hole in his lung, and the hole formed when he was in the shower because he was such a freak with vapor. And so he was sitting there in a fetus position because he could barely breathe for hours.
I don't believe this story.
And they had to send him to the hospital, and he was there for over a month and a half because of all the other problems that came after with his immune system and with his lungs and his cardiovascular system. And this all came...
He's in the fetal position with his cardiovascular system. Dude's full of shit.
From vaping. A healthy guy, healthy fit guy, just like that Daily Mail article. It's dangerous.
It's so dangerous. It fucks up your teeth, it fucks up your lungs, it fucks up your skin. Like, just don't do it.
Also, like with vaping, a lot of my friends believe that like if they vaped, their anxiety would be reduced, but it actually just increased their anxiety. So it's like most of our generation struggles with depression or anxiety. Like if you have a vape, it's gonna make it way worse.
Yeah, your anxiety is reduced until you need to get another vape or can't find your vape.
Yeah.
Look at this coalition of anti-vapors.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I'm still stuck on the cigarette thing. I think cigarettes are worse.
Puff for puff, I think you have a strong argument, but
the accessibility, you're saying the accessibility of nicotine.
Absolutely.
I think I think cigarettes like long-term worse health-wise, but the issue with vape is that it's so accessible that it's much more addictive.
And the way it's marketed too. Like a younger kid is definitely going to go for a vape and start at a younger age than like someone going for a cigarette.
Yeah. Nobody's sneaking a little smoke break in the bathroom stall and then in class and then, you know, at the
you can't do that with cigarettes.
Were you a class vape hitter?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, right in the sleeve? You put it in the sleeve and you're just
I literally, okay, this is gonna sound so ridiculous, but I used to like hate the fact that vapes don't have filters. Like I didn't like it when the juice would like leak on my mouth. So I would buy packs of socks specifically for my vape.
Oh my God.
And I called them my vape socks. And then
What? What?
This is what it can do. This is
like
what
literally, you don't want to be like me. You don't want to have a vape sock.
So I guess we can all agree that vaping is probably a public health crisis. And you know, I vaped a lot in high school. I was an honor student, and I got suspended for vaping twice. It kept slipping out of my my pants pocket, and the teacher walked up and was like, "What the fuck?" And then it happened the next year. The same thing happened with the same pants. I got suspended twice. Overall, don't vape. It's probably not good, but also we live in a free society, so do what you want.
Vaping is so progressive too. Like, just smoke a cigarette. You know, be a man, smoke a cigarette.
Or cigar. I don't
Shut up, stupid.
know. I hang out with a lot of liberals, and we love a cigarette.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Could be wrong.
I think a nicotine addiction goes.
It's universal.
It's universal. You know.
Perhaps.
Andrew Tate pointed a gun at a woman, court documents claim.
Yes, Andrew Tate's a fucking loser too. Next.
Should Andrew Tate be deported from the United States?
Yeah, kick him the fuck out just for being dumb, scammer dumb. Is he American? Is he a citizen? No? Dumb, scam,
3,
kick.
2, 1.
Yay! Guys, we're eating today. We had
Wait a minute. With due process or without due process, Aldo?
Without, fuck him.
All the process, so much process.
I agree.
No.
I think that overall, Andrew Tate is a harm to younger men.
Oh, he's British? No, it's even worse.
And I think that right now, young men are in a crisis, even beyond vaping. I think, and part of it is due to politics in the political sphere right now. So if I want to be honest, I think the Democratic Party in particular hasn't done a good job of bringing young men to the fold or appealing to young men, and that left a vacuum on the other side for young men to then go to Andrew Tate. And what does every young man have a problem with at one
Does he vape? Yes, get out.
point or another? Is dating, or like trying to get a date or whatever. And Andrew
Actually,
Tate,
I'm sorry. I need to change this. I don't think we should deport him. I'm sorry.
you know?
No.
You're joking.
No.
Okay, hold on.
Continue. I'm sorry. I cut you off. Keep
Adam,
going.
can I
No,
jump in
you
real quick?
had a good point. You were talking about the men crisis and the vacuum.
I was just saying the left has sort of alienated men, and I think the right created a vacuum where there's a crazy pipeline. Every young male at some point has a dating problem, and you look up one of these red pill forums, it takes you right to Andrew Tate. So I think it's not a good thing, but that's a
I think by and large, these red pill people are... Did MGTOW transform into the red pill people? Because, Jesus Christ, they are dumb.
separate convo from deportation.
Can I just go back? So in one of our earlier claims, you had made the comment that those who don't appeal to American values or those who commit serious crimes should be deported. Andrew Tate has been accused of illegally trafficking at least 7 women. Andrew
In a different country.
Tate has been accused of raping 4 women, and this is in Romania and in Britain. So if you can claim that
there's a big difference between being accused of rape and being caught speeding. Being accused of a crime and being caught doing a crime are 2 different things.
People who come to this country have to uphold a certain standard or they should be deported. How can you then say that Andrew Tate, someone who has been accused of doing, like, not even misdemeanors, horrific crimes, should not be deported?
That's a very good question, Naima. Well, you know, I will first of all say I am not going to carry water for Andrew Tate, and I'm not going to justify anything bad or immoral that he's done, which there are plenty of those things. And I really don't even have like a super strong opinion on it one way or the other. I think that what you said is kind of the more interesting thing. It's not really Andrew Tate, it's why the response to him was so incredible. I mean, the guy is known worldwide. Right? He has international appeal, which is incredible, and you have to ask yourself, you know, why is that?
He's a scammer.
And I think, you know, you hit the nail on the head with the vacuum that was created. I think a lot of men have felt dispossessed, like they don't have value.
I remember calling this Andrew Tate shit out super early, and I got the same response I got when I called out Crowder, when I called out Tim Pool. They are creepy people It's not jealousy. I just don't think that they are good people. Kind of, but from what I saw, it was more like the MGTOW red pillar from 4 other groups got lumped. Oh. Hey, M4 Sherman, what's up, All Instant? It's just me. Would have been here sooner, but I am in a fight to save Super Earth in the Super New York since the final stage of the siege. Super Earth with the Squid Fleet at 25. Nice. Thank you, M4. Appreciate the subs, Kabir.
Like, you know, they're not worth something, like they don't have goals. And unfortunately, when we talk about the issues of the sexes, I think a lot of times it seems like it's a zero-sum game, and that when men's issues are brought up, it's seen as taking away from women's issues. And so with Andrew Tate, I don't know everything that he's done. I do know that in Romania, he actually tried to get them to go to trial. I know all of his supporters wanted him to go to trial, and even his haters wanted him to go to trial, but the Romanian government never took him to trial.
They did.
So, oh, did they? And was he convicted?
I'm not sure what the, I think there's...
Right, I think they settled or something. So I don't, you said he was accused of a lot of bad things. You know, he wasn't convicted. And so that's why I maybe would say that he shouldn't be deported.
Again, big difference between being caught doing a crime and being known to have done a crime and being convicted of something.
Because if you're convicted of something, sure.
But a man who was you literally just said like 20 minutes ago, a man who was accused of no crimes and wrongfully deported should continue to be deported in an El Salvadorian prison.
Well, we disagree.
But a man who was convicted.
Was he convicted?
No, not convicted, was tried of and accused of over 15 felony counts should not be deported?
I think that somebody that breaks immigration laws should be deported, and someone who's accused of heinous crimes has, you know, maybe shouldn't.
I think a few of the things that have happened to him have not even went to trial yet. Why should he be allowed in this country until he is fully tried for his crimes? No? Like, he should be tried before...
He said he wants to go to trial. And like I said, I'm not going to carry water. You know, if he did something bad, he should face punishment for it.
Okay, I think that you showing red is, you're kind of, it's messing up the rest of your claims that you've made in the past.
I think he's just fucking with you, lady.
About who should be allowed in this country and who shouldn't. Because if you believe that what Andrew Tate is doing is upholding American values, then we really have a different definition of American values.
I think also for me, like why I put green is because when we were talking about the immigration case, like my thing is the affiliation, the possible affiliation with MS-13. Like regardless, I know we disagreed, but for me that's a big deal. And so same with Andrew Tate, if he's involved in human trafficking, that's a really big deal, and that's equivalent to MS-13 for me. So that's why I think he should be deported. And there's so many examples of that for him. It's not just here in the States or in one country.
Real. It just feels like a double standard when you say that about some people, but not about him.
And like conservatives have spent the past 4 years talking about like if any criminals are coming over the border, generally illegally, but if criminals are coming over the border, we need to get them out. Don't let any criminals in. And it's weird to see you all of a sudden.
Yeah, we should be taking American criminals and just giving them to Venezuela. Honestly, fuck it.
Take a really nuanced position on Andrew Tate and be able to differentiate between like, I don't know, whether he was actually convicted and due process. None of that nuance existed when we were talking about Abrego Garcia.
Well, I think some of the nuance was there, but you know, if he committed a crime, I would absolutely say he should be deported. I kind of don't like the prompt. I think the bigger thing that maybe we can talk about is the men's issues, you know, are men in crisis? Because I think that response to Andrew Tate is fascinating and should be looked at. You know, why was it so big? I think we just don't have spaces for men anymore to develop. You know, I was a Boy Scout, I'm an Eagle Scout, and that's one space that I really credit as having a profound impact on my development as a young man. I think a lot of men in this country have been told that masculinity is inherently bad and that all things that come from masculinity are toxic. And men just want one thing. We want to be needed. We want to be respected. And they don't feel that way. I remember in high school, we had one assignment in our A-Push class just for white men. And so, you know, it makes sense why they feel dispossessed, why they feel upset or like they feel like they have no value. And
well, I think my take on it is I do think that men's mental health is in crisis right now. I do think that men, I mean, the suicidality rates are increasing. We cannot, you know, dispute that. That is a fact. And I do think it's because there's a lot of stigmas around men being able to show emotion and being able to...
Yeah, I wonder why.
Kind of be open and vulnerable and honest about how they're feeling and have access to mental health care when they need it. I think that my issue with toxic masculinity and Andrew Tate is that he's taking something that is in good faith. Boys and men do need help finding community. Boys and men do need help with their mental health. But he takes it a step further and starts blaming women, and there's all this negativity towards women. And a lot of what Andrew Tate says is promoting a masculinity that doesn't really favor being open about your emotions, like just go to the gym and make money and don't like.
That is toxic.
I 100% agree. Well, I
toxic.
don't think that toxic masculinity exists. It's either masculinity or it's something entirely different.
I think that what you were describing is cowardice. Like, I think Andrew Tate is the definition of cowardice. He's not a man. And I think sometimes when we use the term, like, I agree, toxic masculinity doesn't exist because, like, that's saying toxic humanity. Like, I think that those toxic behaviors are cowardice, it's foolish, it's evil, it's abhorrent. And so I think we should separate the two.
Well, I think the reason why I call it toxic masculinity is because charlatans like Andrew Tate will call it masculinity. Right. And I'm trying to say, no, this is not masculinity.
I think we should teach them that, though.
Yeah.
Like, I think we should teach them, like, this is the opposite of what a man is. Yeah. And I think, like, fathers play a big role in that, too. I think, you know, there is an absence or a lack of relationships with fathers, and I think that when young boys don't have that, I agree, they go to these like terrible figures like Andrew Tate in these far corners of the internet, they're becoming a lot more common, and they hear voices that aren't necessarily true, but they're loud, and so that's why they get attention.
It's just disgusting because people like Andrew Tate and Myron Gaines are really exploiting young men.
Yeah,
and they, of course, they are. And I think everyone should be able to say, yes, they are exploiting young men. It's clear that they are. They're using them for money. Like, Andrew Tate is the first motherfucker to say, don't wife a hoe. Don't give money to these hoes while running hoe operations. Like, of course they're exploiting kids and men. Teens even.
Exacerbating the issue.
Yeah.
Because they're teaching them to do the opposite of the things that would help them with mental health crises.
And they're saying being a man is buying a flashy car, sleeping with tons of women. It's the antithesis of masculinity.
Not showing any emotion whatsoever. Which
I think men need to feel more. I think men need to not necessarily show more emotion, but feel emotion more. I think men need other men to go to be able to confide in, to cry, to whatever you need to do. I think men need other men.
We were just crying before this, you and I.
Given just what we talked about in our past topics and how we can all agree that Andrew Tate is kind of a bag of chodes, would you...
A bag of chodes. I like that.
Would you be open to changing your answer for this question?
I don't think being a mega chode is grounds enough to deport somebody, but I do think that if he is convicted of any crime, I will be right there with you, arm in arm, waving him goodbye on the airplane.
Okay. I'll take it. Okay, guys. So hypothetically, you're the president. Do you have one executive order to address the issues we discussed?
I have one.
Yeah, deport criminals.
I think going along with our discussion about vaping, about the way that people vape, the accessibility at all times, I would say that I think we should do something in the same vein to marijuana. I think that it's become incredibly easily accessible. I think children are getting it younger and younger and younger. And just like with cigarettes...
Yes, and this is all a brand new thing. Kids smoking pot is brand new. That has never happened before.
To vaping, you know, our parents smoking these joints with really low levels of THC back in the 80s is a lot different than today when you have these super high concentrated THC pens that kids are getting a hold of and they're vaping it constantly. You know, I live here in LA and it's almost impossible to go through a light without smelling weed. The entire city smells like a skunk all the time. And so I think it's gotten a little out of control. I think some of the progressive social things we've done in the last 20 years, we found out that the things that people do in their own homes a lot of times come outside of the home. And with marijuana, I think that coming outside the home and becoming as prevalent as it is today is really damaging our youth and damaging Americans in general.
I would then sign an executive order immediately nullifying your marijuana.
Period.
What the hell?
I second the nullification.
I don't even necessarily think it should be an outright ban, but again, I think that the high concentration and...
Well, they should make it for 18 and older, you know, the law that already exists.
The way that kids can get these vape pens and vape them all over the place, I think that they're...
No, you can smell a vape pen.
We need to do something to address that.
So your executive order isn't just weed in general and recriminalizing weed, it's specifically targeting weed vapes?
It's maybe, you know, I don't have my whole plan fleshed out. I'd have to do some more writing.
He has concepts of a plan.
But what about alcohol?
Concepts of a plan.
Do you think alcohol can
but I think with the vaping... Yeah, I mean, what do you think about that, Nima? Do you think that there's a concern there? Do you think that's worth addressing?
I do think that there is a concern to the weed vapes. I definitely used weed vapes when I was in high school, way more accessible than actually smoking weed. But I also think that weed being criminalized is just not great for the economy, not great for the country. We did it for a long time. I don't think it worked. And I feel like there's more pressing issues than trying to like parse through what kind of marijuana is good and bad and all that, you know?
I will say with marijuana though, like in 2019, I gave a speech about how I was like super pro marijuana, but I had an experience in 2023 with someone that I really, really cared about. And they didn't realize that their brain couldn't break down marijuana, couldn't break down the THC, and they went into a psychosis. And this is happening with
like
a lot of young boys in California specifically, where boys, their brains cannot break down the THC. And so I do think like that is a concern. It's worth examining.
Skill issue.
I think my executive order would be tied to both immigration.
Exactly, lady. Skill issue.
But human trafficking, we talked about Andrew Tate, we talked about MS-13. I think that if you have an affiliation with human trafficking, minors, women, men, that there should be serious legal action taken against that. So whether you're being deported or you face a really serious penalty for your crimes, I think we should put more effort into that.
After I signed the executive order nullifying all those marijuana one, I would sign one making sure that presidents can't overreach and target law firms, universities, or other entities that are supposed to be independent.
You don't need pot, man. You don't need it. You're a smart guy. You can handle it without it.
Thank you.
Honestly, I would love to smoke with you, but we'll talk about that.
All right, they go into like fuck, marry, deport. I don't even care what that is. There's like 5 minutes left. But okay. Skill issue is going to be the new UTPTP. I'm here for it. But yeah, we're done. This was a good show. I would like to thank everybody for coming out, for spending some time with me this evening. I am going to go eat. I am hungry, boy. Last thing I ate, super early, 10 a.m. Very hungry, boy. Guys, thank you for coming and hanging out. Thank you for all the conversation we had tonight. Thank you, Mama Yikes, for hitting that big 100. And I will see you guys tomorrow for Sunday Wednesday. And perhaps if we have a AAA, I might see you over there if we have one. If I decide to show up, maybe I'll be the guy who doesn't show up now. Thank you, None Your Business. Tier 3 for 58 months. Holy shit. Thank you, Nunya. I'll see you guys later.